This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
Next on the 5 o'clock report.
This is definitely now a kidnapping.
This is a gold mine.
They are reckless, creating chaos in our communities.
Death threats against ICE personnel increased more than 8,000%. Assaults on officers have skyrocketed over 1,400%.
Now, let's go to the newsroom.
Who was that masked man? Good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Mark Webster. That is the big question this afternoon, now that the FBI has released photos and video of the prime suspect in the abduction of Nancy Guthrie. Law enforcement expert Rodney Harrison tells CBS,
This is definitely now a kidnapping. I wouldn't be surprised if this wasn't his first time committing a crime.
They were pulled from a buffer in her Ring camera, and although they show grainy images of an armed man in ski mask and gloves, cybersecurity expert Morgan Wright tells Fox News they can learn a lot.
This is a gold mine. Here's what they're going to be able to do with this. We know the size of the tiles that are out in that hallway. Using photogrammetry, I can now measure the shoe size of your suspect. He's got a weapon in the front. We're going to be able to identify. It looks like our suspect has a mustache, so that might be able to help us narrow down what this person looked like.
The 84-year-old was abducted from her Tucson, Arizona home 10 days ago. It took this long for forensic experts to extract buffer video from Guthrie's Ring camera. Some investigators right now are combing the neighborhood. Some are also at the home of Anna Guthrie's neighbor. It's one of the sisters, but why is unclear. ICE on the hot seat. Congressional Democrats opposed to the Trump administration's crackdown on illegal immigration took turns blasting the administration's immigration enforcement heads who testified at a hearing today.
They are reckless, creating chaos in our communities, terrorizing adults and children alike.
Democrat Benny Thompson, acting ICE Director Todd Lyons, had his own critique for anti-ICE Democrats.
Death threats against ICE personnel increased more than 8,000%. Assaults on officers have skyrocketed over 1,400%. One officer in Minnesota had his finger bitten off by a protester, egged on by elected officials.
Representatives from ICE, Border Protection, and Citizen and Immigration Services appearing before the House panel amid mounting pressure on the Trump administration to tamp down on ICE operations. Over in the Senate, the Secretary of Commerce responding to calls from Democrats to resign, this over revelations from the Epstein files that seem to contradict his recent statements about his interactions with Epstein.
We've seen all of these documents, of these millions and millions of documents. There may be 10 emails connecting me with him, probably about 10 emails connecting me with him over a 14-year period.
Last fall, during a podcast, Howard Lutnick said he vowed in 2005 to never again be in the same room with the convicted sex offender. In a Senate hearing today, though, he acknowledged he and his family had lunch on Epstein's Island in 2012, but says he was accompanied by his wife, children, and nannies. With a formidable U.S. military presence now within striking distance, talks continue between the U.S. and Iran. But exactly what is and isn't being talked about is concerning to U.S. ally Israel. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will be in Washington tomorrow to express concerns about the Trump administration focusing on Iran's nuclear weapons program and not on its also dangerous ballistic missile program.
With a second round of nuclear negotiations scheduled for later this week, a top advisor to Iran's supreme leader is visiting with mediators today in Oman. Iranian officials continue to threaten the United States despite a massive U.S. military buildup in the region.
That's Fox's Trey Yingst. Medical freedom. The Health and Human Services Department just lifted a Biden-era mandate that required pharmacists across the country to dispense abortion-inducing drugs. Alliance Defending Freedom Senior Counsel Matt Bowman says they had several cases pending in the courts, and now none of it is needed because the mandate is gone.
With the Trump administration now running the Health and Human Service Department, they just repealed this mandate completely, and they said we are not in the business of telling pharmacies they have to dispense and stock abortion drugs. Because of that, because of other reasons, other priorities that the Trump administration has of protecting conscience and religious liberty, they're going to take this mandate down entirely.
Bowman says pharmacists and any other medically trained person will no longer be forced to practice medicine in a way that goes against their faith.
When I go to work, are they going to say, well, since you're here, either as a student or a trainee, you have to be involved in things like abortion and changing the sex of young children and all kinds of other things that people shouldn't be forced to practice.
We'll have more with Alliance Defending Freedom this Thursday on our feature, Faith Under Fire. And staying on the health front, does moderate tea or coffee consumption help to safeguard your mind against dementia? A 4-decade-long study looked at the possibility by studying the habits of over 100,000 people.
What they found was people who had moderate consumption of caffeinated coffee or tea, so 2 to 3 cups of coffee a day, 1 to 2 cups of tea per day, had a lower risk of dementia, but we cannot say based on this study that this is actually protective.
That's CBS health consultant Dr. Celine Gounder. Still to come here on the 5 o'clock report, we'll have a recap of some of the day's top local stories and highlights from today's Hometown Heroes.
I'm Kevin Williams with a check of your Family Life regional weather forecast. Well, what do you think of our thaw? Temperatures breaking their freeze point in much of the area for the first time in more than 2 weeks. Mixed rain, ice, and snow showers this evening, and a few snow showers overnight tonight as temperatures drop back below freezing. Tomorrow and Thursday, mostly cloudy with flurries in central and eastern Pennsylvania. Cloudy with occasional snow and flurries elsewhere around the region, and there'll be some light accumulations favoring areas south of the lakes. High temperatures tomorrow, around 30, and in the 20s then for Thursday.
All right, thank you very much, Kevin. Now checking the stories making news where you live across New York and Pennsylvania. The pipes are breaking. Warmer weather the next few days. Relief for most of us, but a headache for some, including a spike in the number of water pipes that have been breaking. Here's Family Life's Sarah Harnish diving in.
Yeah, Mark, it's that cold, warm toggle that causes such issues with pipes in your home. Gary Giordano of Giordano Restoration says business is hopping because it's 37 degrees outside instead of minus 35.
We're getting at least 10 calls a day, and we're not even a plumbing company.
Ernie Salat is a plumber. He says it takes 24 hours of below freezing temperatures to cause hairline cracks in pipes. When it's below 32, trickle your water and keep cabinets and doors open.
The pipe slushes first and then doesn't get the circulation it needs, and then it leads to a break. The house just doesn't freeze overnight.
He also recommends keeping your thermostat at 70 during cold snaps. Our next freeze is tomorrow. Sarah Harnish, Family Life News.
All right, thank you very much, Sarah. New York police are warning snowmobilers to play it safe in the great outdoors after 3 fatal sledding accidents in just the past 2 weeks. The latest tragedy Sunday in Warsaw, New York, where a 17-year-old was killed after being ejected from his sled while riding with a friend on an unmarked trail. State Trooper James O'Callahan.
The 17-year-old operating the snowmobile went off the trail at some point, struck what seems to be a log pile covered in snow, struck that log pile, was ejected. We had the 16-year-old also hit the log pile, get ejected, and the 16-year-old sled ultimately struck the 17-year-old.
The victim identified as Stephen Gregoire of Varysburg. Snowmobile safety instructor Jeff Glassman says nothing good happens when you ride on unmarked trails.
There's stuff underneath the snow where you don't know. There could be logs, there could be, stumps, there could be, a pond or frozen, something like that.
Experts say this winter has been ideal for snowmobiling with colder than usual temperatures and a deeper than usual snowpack. Nassau County Executive and 2026 New York Republican gubernatorial candidate Bruce Blakeman has his running mate now. It's the sheriff of Madison County, Todd Hood. Blakeman says he selected Hood as his lieutenant governor because of his dedication to public safety.
I've got a great candidate for lieutenant governor. The guy is terrific. He's a New York hero. Has a very strong record in law enforcement, comes from an important part of the state.
Blakeman is hoping to become the first Republican to win statewide office in New York since Governor George Pataki was elected to a third term in 2002. On the Democratic side, meantime, current Lieutenant Governor Antonio Delgado suspended his campaign today. In a press release, Delgado said he concluded there was no viable path forward in taking on Kathy Hochul in a June primary. Just last week, Delgado named former Buffalo mayoral candidate India Walton, a Democratic socialist, as his running mate. Governor Josh Shapiro making a pit stop in Lackawanna County, Pennsylvania today.
Today is an important date in Dixon City and in Pennsylvania.
Shapiro says he was there to show support after a fire at Lehigh Valley Hospital in Dixon City.
In these hyper-polarized, divided times, let's take comfort in knowing that we all stand together with our first responders, with our police, and with all who run toward danger to keep us safe.
Shapiro says he has a new appreciation for firefighters after an arsonist tried to burn down the governor's mansion with his family inside last year.
When an arsonist attacked me and my family while we slept at the governor's residence, I had the opportunity to witness firsthand, together with my wife Lori and our 4 children, your heroism. As we were being rushed out, you were rushing in.
First responders moved 77 patients while the fire was in full force at the hospital. Not a single person received a serious injury. The hospital says they hope to have their emergency room back up and running by Friday. Up next, highlights from today's Hometown Heroes. The Royal Rangers is a long-standing program for young men within the Assemblies of God Church. I spoke with Richard Merrill from Royal Rangers Outpost 42 in Batavia, New York, to learn more about it.
The Royal Rangers, they've been around for quite some time now. They actually fall under the Assemblies of God's ministry tools.
Okay.
And they are all around the nation. And actually, there's international, too.
Programs like the Royal Rangers seem to be picking up even more steam now that the traditional Boy Scout program has started to decline. Their loss, your gain, I guess.
Yes. I mean, a lot of it is because we're more Christian-based, and we have a very strong outlook on making sure that the men are prepared to teach these young men, and they need guidance. If a kid does not have a father figure in the home, then we try to step up as Royal Ranger commanders to be that father figure in their life and to support them.
Yeah, you don't have to read many news headlines of recent vintage to see that boys without dads or active dads has been an increasing problem in American society, and so that's one way to fill that gap.
Yes, more and more. I was actually in the Rangers back in the late 80s, early 90s, and then I graduated in 93 and left to go to the military. With my career choices and everything, I'd never had a chance to regain the establishment of the Royal Rangers until the last year or so. When I retired from the federal government as a firefighter, I moved back to New York because that's where all my family is, and started up with the Rangers back in Webster, New York, and then I moved out into Scottsville, and I'm now going to Batavia Assembly of God.
Well, thank you for your service, by the way. We appreciate that. Tell me a little bit more, someone who was not familiar with the Royal Rangers. What's it all about?
Our mission is to reach young men to strive to be like Christ-like men, and that's teaching them the Bible, teaching them how to make decisions on their own, and how to be a leader in society, and how to be able to lead young men like themselves to Christ by going camping, fishing, and we have devotions. Every Wednesday night we meet and we have a Bible devotion, and then we do a mentor leadership guide where we teach them how to learn to be leaders.
You've been on both sides of this now. You were a ranger as a kid, and then you come back as a mentor, and so you've seen both sides of how important that is.
Yes, very important, because to be honest with you, I lost focus in my Christian walk many years ago, and if it wasn't for the Rangers and talking to my brother-in-law about the Rangers, I would have struggled to come back to my Christian values. It reminded me of so much on how God has taken me from when I was a younger kid to my adulthood, and the Rangers always stuck in my heart and my mind. The learnings and stuff and the true values of a Christian, honesty, loyalty, and you do a lot of guidance for kids, and I love kids. I love to work with young kids in high school and through middle school ages. They're very in tune, and they really want to know. They're hungry to know God's word, and they're hungry to be the best that they can be, and I like to be able to help them find that direction.
You brought up that even when you maybe lost your walk a little bit after being a ranger, that brings to mind the scripture of training up a child in the ways of the Lord, and they won't stray from it. So even if they do stray for a while, perhaps like in your case, maybe they'll come back. That seed is there, that base is there, and that's so important, especially with what kids face in today's culture here.
I wouldn't want to be a teenager in this day and age right now.
Yeah.
It is very hard, and it's sad the way our society has changed so much. I've been on here for 52 years, and it's just so amazing on how our country and just the world has changed. It's hard to be a Christian nowadays.
Richard Merrill with the Royal Rangers, Outpost 42 in Batavia, New York. You can hear the entire feature and all of our Family Life original news features at Apple Podcast, YouTube, Spotify, and FamilyLife.org. This is the 5 o'clock report on Family Life.
John Wesley famously said, "Gain all you can, save all you can, give all you can."
Hi, I'm Rob West with today's Faith and Finance Minute. When Wesley talked about saving, he didn't mean accumulating wealth. He meant frugality. Saving meant preserving resources, resisting waste, and living simply so you could give more freely. In his day, that looked like patching clothes, reusing items, and avoiding excess. Today, it might look like driving an older car that runs well, cooking at home, or choosing a modest home over a sprawling one. 2 Corinthians 9:11 says, "You will be enriched in every way so that you can be generous on every occasion." We don't save instead of giving. We save so we can keep giving. Saving becomes worship when it makes room for generosity. Get biblical answers to your financial questions in the Faith Fi community. Download Faith Fi, Faith and Finance in your app store or visit faithfi.com.
Thank you, sir. Still to come on the 5 o'clock report, a British crook was no match for angry llamas. Story after weather with Kevin.
Well, very good evening. I'm Kevin Williams with a check of your Family Life regional weather forecast. Well, what do you think of our thaw? Temperatures breaking their freeze point in much of the area for the first time in more than 2 weeks. But the arrival of a cold front will bring us back into some chilly conditions the rest of the week, and there'll be a little snow as well. In the meantime, there'll be a couple of mixed rain, ice, and snow showers this evening, and a few snow showers overnight tonight as temperatures drop back below freezing. Tomorrow and Thursday, mostly cloudy with flurries in central and eastern Pennsylvania, cloudy with occasional snow and flurries elsewhere around the region, and there'll be some light accumulations favoring areas south of the lakes, Erie and Ontario. High temperatures tomorrow, around 30, and in the 20s then for Thursday.
All right, thank you very much, Kevin. Finally at 5, a British man on the lam from the law was no match for llamas. It was evening in Derbyshire, England. Police say a fleeing burglar hopped a fence on Heidi Price's farm looking to get away, not realizing he had jumped into a field that was lush with llamas.
One of them noticed it. They gave a warning cry out to the others. They all came and they circled this fugitive and they started releasing this huge alarm call. Sounds like an old man laughing. So he was just surrounded by 8 llamas in the dark laughing at him.
And if you haven't had the pleasure of llamas laughing at you, it sounds something like this. Imagine that times 8. And as bad as a lot of laughing llamas was, it could have been even worse for the guy.
If he hadn't been caught by the llamas, he would have made it a bit further into the field and been met with 5 Highland cattle bulls, and the demise might not have been as good.
One crook that was probably happy to see the police. And that's the world we live in for Tuesday, February 10th, 2026. Thanks again for joining us. I'm Mark Webster, Family Life News.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.